So yesterday, I finally got to see Barbie and Oppenheimer, the double feature that's making the rounds right now. I really wanted to see Oppenheimer, and I wasn't really looking forward to Barbie, but hearing it will have Ryan Gosling and that it's an ambitious project, I figured it's worth watching as well. I'm sure I'm not alone in this, with both movies profiting heavily on the other's audience and success. In short, Oppenheimer was a masterpiece. I still think Across the Spider-Verse is the movie of the year in my opinion, but the cinematic brilliance of Oppenheimer should not be understated. His portrayal of the Manhattan Project, the US's involvement in the Cold War, and Oppenheimer himself was masterful and thought-provoking. But Barbie, on the other hand, the best way to explain it is that it was a good movie. It had excellent cinematography and set design, and it was pretty funny, and the acting was top-notch from pretty much everyone involved. But while I do think it's a good movie, I didn't really like it. And I think you already know where this is going. Not to say I didn't like the message, in fact I very much want the message to succeed. And this message largely has to do with empowerment, being yourself, and forging your own destiny. But I do believe it was executed somewhat poorly. And before I go over my main thoughts on the movie, let me just tell you, even though I think it goes without saying, major spoilers are coming up. So let me just clarify one thing. I'm not the target audience for Barbie. In fact, I'm the very opposite. I mean, all the videos I've made on this channel thus far have been about NASCAR.
Fighter pilot!
You could say I'm a big fan of horses and brewskis myself. So it's hard to put my thoughts in the spotlight, and I'm sure it's unjust to some. But men, aka the Kens, in the movie, play a big role in the plot, and as a result, I think I can make a judgment on the movie, without being necessarily unjust. I do believe they could have got the message across about the female empowerment without a game of contrast between the two gender roles in society, but they didn't. So if they're going to include men in the conversation, they didn't do them justice. Not that it's a problem, though. I mean, they do include men. In fact, a lot of the problems that Ken faces are quite relatable to some level and actually make a pretty good point. It just seems like they didn't commit. They didn't go all the way and explore it and give it closure. Like I said, it wasn't the point of the movie to do that, which is why I say it's okay, but if you're going to put it side by side with Barbie in the women conversation, you have to go all the way or it won't be right. It can't be. Basically, the whole point of part one and me saying all of this is to get out of the way that if Greta Gerwig, the director, I think that's how you say her name, can dish it out, she should be able to get it back.
Couldn't stand up being near me when my face don't seem to want to shine, 'cause it's a little bit.
So basically, one of the big grown-up words thrown into the movie a lot, in fact like 2,000 million times, is patriarchy. And essentially the conclusion of the movie at the end is patriarchy bad, matriarchy good. It's not necessarily stated within the movie, but that's the conclusion of the film, with the women, the Barbies, becoming the group holding power in Barbie Land at the end. Oh my god, I cannot believe that sentence just came out of my mouth. But I do have comments on that yet to come. So basically the Kens are literally left homeless at the end and given a low position of power in the ending. Pretty close to how it was at the very start of the movie. So the conclusion is clearly that matriarchy is okay. Not that it's good per se, but all of the characters have no problem with it being reinstituted. So basically, you have a matriarchy at the very end that views the Kens as objects, essentially decorations and accessories. I mean, the movie literally states Ken's sole desire is to have Barbie look at him. But how can you have that? Be surprised when Ken goes to the real world, sees men in power, wants to have that in Barbie Land, and then be surprised when that happens? Essentially, Ken becomes obsessed with the patriarchy and brings it back to Barbie Land, which by the way is never shown as to how he managed to do that. Now, don't get me wrong, that is clearly the incorrect way for Ken to go about things. Patriarchy is bad. We can all agree about that. But the Barbies literally manipulate and tear down the Kendom, as it's called in the movie, and replace it with the very thing they want to get rid of. In the end, Barbie does feel bad for Ken, and like I said, they give them a low power position, but not equal status. Essentially, neither party learned a single thing, and it's pretty much back to where the movie started. I mean, separate yourself from the movie as either a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. Look at the plot from a glance. One party is put down so another can rise up. That's Ken establishing the Kendom. And he establishes it because he's been in his own world and then goes to another world where men can be in positions of power. If you were oppressed and you see that, of course you would obsess and react the way he did. And then in the end, that party is put down so the other can rise once again. AKA the Barbies returning to power. What are you doing? What are you doing? Did you learn anything? Nobody learned a thing. and the movie makes it out like everyone has come out of it changed. In fact, the only people that truly went out and that are truly changed is Barbie and Ken. Ken, who won't have to be infatuated with Barbie anymore, and Barbie won't have to spend another minute in the hellscape that is Barbie Land. Sure, the main characters learn that them being themselves is enough, regardless of their flaws and shortcomings. Great message. But how are they enough if they aren't equal? Clearly, they are not enough, and I think that was the entire thing the mom was getting to about women never being enough no matter what they did, because they're women. So, it seems like there's a great deal of hypocrisy here. Yes, patriarchy is bad, but matriarchy is too. It's the same thing, yet this movie treats them like they're two different things. And that's largely because Barbie Land is portrayed as the opposite of the real world. And that leads me to part 3.
She said, I don't know if I've ever been good enough. I'm a little bit rusty and...
As I said before, the movie treats reality as Barbie Land flipped on its head. Men are in positions of power. Any jobs filled by Barbies in Barbie Land are filled by men. Men ignore women, etc., etc. But, I'm sorry, the real world is not that. The real world is not the patriarchy. I can walk outside, see a woman doctor, a woman head of state, a woman driving a forklift, a woman soldier, a woman CEO. Sure, there is less, and there are imbalances, injustices, and mistreatment the world over. But the difference between the real world and the world portrayed in Barbie is that that very equality is out there. And many of us want it to exist. And there are people, including many men as well as women, who are trying to go out and get it for everyone, for all people. The fact that this Barbie movie can exist in the real world, that we want and support women being equal, is proof it's not black and white like it is in the movie. Like I said, the movie is making valid statements, and I'll never say the real world is great and all. In fact, it's quite dreadful and unfair, despite all that I just said. But the movie's execution, at least to me, just has it all wrong. It's an execution that'll probably create more of a divide that will only lead to confirmation bias from women's perspective, due to the opinions of the movie coming from men like me, when I don't dislike the message at all. The world is not completely equal, but it should be. But instead, the movie ends with the Kens being brought down at the peak of their happiness, when they finally get what they wanted, and the matriarchy wins out. I would have got it if this was part of the main conflict, which leads to the climax. But you're telling me that's the resolution? That's the end? We get that ending instead of a way for the Kens and the Barbies to both find happiness and the peace that they want in different ways through different means, with both settling their differences and understanding each other. Should people not have their happiness in one way or another? Instead, it's simply denied for the other party in both scenarios. And apparently manipulation, starting a f***ing war, and the complete tearing down of a way of living and thinking is the way to go. It reminds me of modern politics. It's like you have to be completely one way or the other. And no matter what, the other side absolutely cannot tolerate or respect the other, even to the slightest degree. It's like a scale, and equality is right in the middle. And there's different scales for all kind of issues in life. And there's always outliers and exceptions. It's never an end-all be-all, but there are different scales because men and women both struggle, and struggle in different ways. That's what comes with equality. You'll never always get to the very middle, but with each issue, you have to aim for as close to the middle as possible. That's what you have to do. But what we have here, though, is starting with one side leaning, and we do a mass overcorrection in the other direction. As is the title of this video, the premise of the movie becomes the very thing it swore to destroy. This is something we see a lot of in Hollywood lately, and that leads us to the next part of the video. Watching this movie, like a lot of presentations today, makes me only cherish films like Top Gun Maverick all the more. And that's rich, coming from a guy like me, right? I mean, planes and guns go brr, right? Really, the main thing about it is that it was just a movie purely for entertainment. It was a powerful, excellent movie that you can simply enjoy. It didn't have to have a flashy message or make a statement or tell you what you should or shouldn't do or how to do it. Sure, you could say it has patriotic symbolism and masculine energy, but that association comes from within, not the movie itself and its plot. If you were an alien coming down to Earth and saw it, you wouldn't see that association. And you can't say the same for Barbie. Not saying that Barbie's message about empowerment, independence, and choosing your own path for yourself is bad, but it just went about stating that message quite poorly. If you want a movie that truly does it well, look at Across the Spider-Verse. I mean, surely there will always be political elements in a movie or something to say somewhere. It's impossible to escape that. I mean, after all, we're humans with thoughts and feelings and biases. For example, Miles Morales has BLM patches. But The movie itself, the story, it has nothing to do with that. It's merely a decoration, a prop. It's not an actual plot element. I could care less about BLM patches or the fact Miles is mixed. The same goes for The Black Little Mermaid. I mean, I have different gripes about that film and companies cashing in on old projects and rewriting them and changing them, sacrificing new original creations, but that's a topic for another day. And all of that, okay, that's just fine. The story has a mixed main character, a strong female lead, and it has the same message as Barbie.
Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.
The movie gets across that message of empowerment, and like I said before, also the message of forging your own destiny, regardless of who you are, or what people say or tell you to act like, despite or because of something. Barbie tries to get that message across, yet while we end with the movie telling us you're enough, just being you, in the end, the Kens are less than the Barbies, while just being themselves. How does that make any sense? Actually, it makes complete sense. I mean, I get it. Men have been in power for so long. Serves them right. Right? How can I take the message seriously at that point? And that leads me to part 5.
And I don't know if I've ever been really loved by a hand that's touched me.
Alright, so I told you we'd be getting back to why the heck I'm even judging this movie so deeply in the first place. Well, this movie is confused about what it wants to be. After all, it's just a movie about children's stories, right? No. No, it's not. I don't see anyone using that as a rebuttal to arguments like mine online, but just in case anyone wants to. For whatever reason, it went, in my opinion at least, way over its head with its commentary on society for how silly they wanted the comedy to be. I'm simply going on this deep dive into this movie because the movie decided to go into a deep dive itself. While it is a comedy surrounding children's toys, I mean, it literally has Will Ferrell as the CEO of Mattel, it also wants you to take it very seriously. Because it's making commentary on very, very, very difficult topics, and it really tried to cover everything about the topics at hand. It was spread pretty thin. It covered body shaming, dysmorphia, materialism, catcalling, bullying, parenting, gender roles, occupational discrimination, the male gaze, government, music, capitalism, obesity, and horses. Now, don't get me wrong. I laughed at a lot of this movie. Especially the part where the guys start playing guitars for the Barbies, the beaching people off, Ken renting a book about trucks, the anxiety from cellulite. I mean, it was also specifically targeted that it was just hilarious. Even though, like Charlie said in the Noise Meter video, I think that whole thing with Will Ferrell was sort of unnecessary and really made it kind of hard to take the whole movie seriously. I still kind of thought that it kind of served its purpose to further move along the plot. It's just that, in light of the serious topics explored in the movie, and the characters moving from silly Barbie land to allegedly serious and backwards real world, it was pretty awkward to say the least. Especially when all of the men, save for, I guess, the dad in the real world, and even then not really, are portrayed comically as idiots. I know it's a really, really, really cliche take, but what if women were portrayed in this film that way? Because they have been in the past to harsh criticism. Just think about it. Men trying to tear down women who try to take power. Where have we seen that before? How about everywhere pre-2010? And this movie treats it like it's not the same thing. How can I take this movie seriously if the message is not even presented with an accurate depiction? Are we dealing in exaggerations here, or reality? Because if the portrayal of women is also an exaggeration, why should I take it seriously when Barbie and the mom are talking about all the things women go through? If anything, it puts women in just as bad of a light as it does men, because if women can get away with what men apparently shouldn't do, then that's pretty alarming for society. Now, I don't think men or women should want to take power over the other and deny the other's rights. I would like for neither to hold that mantle, honestly, and for people to just be people. Honestly, it's stuff like this why so many people are opting to be non-binary these days. I mean, I think I get it now. But unfortunately, this movie separates the genders in quite stark contrast and makes it really hard to actually be able to take it with an ounce of seriousness because of the double standards. But here I am, trying to piece it all together despite the mess. So, like I said, I didn't like the movie, and now you know why. But I think it's a good movie. The cinematography, like I said, was excellent. The dedication to the sets and the costumes and the character design is just immaculate. There were moments that I really like, such as when Barbie sits down and looks around the park, taking in reality for all that it is. And she has that moment with the old lady, who is actually the Barbie creator's daughter. I think that it was a really powerful scene, and I had goosebumps. I think it said a lot, without saying hardly anything, unlike the entirety of the rest of the movie. I think that it's a movie that should be made, and a message that should be spread. I just don't agree with how they're spreading it. And now it has a 3.0 rating on Google, with half giving it 5 stars and the other half giving it 1 star, with websites bashing people for review bombing. And maybe that is happening. Perhaps it's happening on both sides. Or maybe people just don't like it. Like me, I'm sure many others left dissatisfied by the film, both men and women, and it takes a hell of a lot for a movie as big as Barbie to have its Google audience rating swayed like that, even with alleged review bombing. Meanwhile, Oppenheimer sets up 3.7. Not great, but it's better. While at this moment in 2023, last year's Top Gun sits at a staggering 4.8, and Across the Spider-Verse at 4.3 right now. Wow, who would have thought? When you don't tell people how to think. And that's all I've got. This has been our first non-NASCAR video on the Hoffle, and we plan on making more videos just talking about things in the future. Either way, I'll be seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching.